Hello and welcome to Wednesday Warfare, where I review NXT and AEW Dynamite back-to-back and try and figure out which show won for the week. AEW had some good momentum coming off of Full Gear this past weekend. Would they be able to capitalize? Time will tell, but for now, let's look at NXT first things first. We got the Cruiserweight Championship as Lio Rush defends against Angel Garza. Early in the match, Garza goes to the outside into the crowd and does the pants-ripping gimmick right in front of Lio's wife and children who are watching from ringside, which lights a fire under the champion. Lots of crazy near falls and some finisher kickouts near the end of the match. It ends when Lio hits the final hour on Garza, and while the pinfall is happening, Garza clearly gets a foot on the ropes, but the referee misses it, counts a 3. Lio wins the match and retains the championship, but it does protect Garza in that way, sets up the possibility for a rematch down the line. But hell of a way to open the show. A great match here, despite the wonky, controversial finish. But right after the match, we cut to outside Full Sail, where we see Tegan Nox and Rhea Ripley both laid out by some mystery assailant, and when I saw that, my mind immediately went, oh, it's got to be Dakota Kai as revenge from last week. But we do see some stuff later on in the night that kind of muddies the waters. But one thing I gathered from this episode, and just from looking at the past episodes of NXT, they love doing their who beat up this person backstage gimmick on NXT. Next match sees Xia Li versus Aliyah. Pretty short match here. It ends when Xia hits Aliyah right in the snoot with a roundhouse kick, but it might have been a bit too snug, because after the 3 count, you can see, oh, her nose has been busted open and she's bleeding profusely. I hope she's okay. We get a hype package for Pete Dunne versus Killian Dain for later. Then Finn Balor comes out to cut a promo, and he asks, what happened to the NXT that I left behind? What happened to the business that I used to love? He complains about, people crying on social media. He calls out Matt Riddle, who right on cue shows up and jumps Finn, and as Finn runs away through the crowd, Matt actually calls him a putz on the live microphone. The Undisputed Era show up. They surround Riddle, but out come Tommaso Ciampa and Keith Lee to try and protect Matt for a bit. Keith wants a match with Adam Cole, but then Roderick Strong sticks up for his leader, and so we have an impromptu non-title match between Keith Lee and Roderick Strong. It's a very good match here. Despite the huge size disparity between these two men, they are able to make each other look very good here. Very fluid, very strong-looking matchup. Ultimately, the Undisputed Era, who were kicked out of ringside at the beginning of the match, they come back out there. Ciampa and Riddle show up, and they have a big old fight. Finn Balor returns, and he beats up Matt Riddle. But back in the ring, Lee hits the Supernova on Strong to win the match, and right after that, the Undisputed Era beat down on Lee. Out comes Dominic Dijakovic, who cleans house and eliminates the Era almost single-handedly in the ring. He tells Ciampa he wants in on his War Games team. They share a tense handshake, then an even tenser handshake between Dijakovic and Lee, the fierce rivals, and that's pretty much that. So here we have, as of right now at least, the formulated team going against the Undisputed Era in the War Games match. A very ragtag group of individuals, and on paper, I do not believe they're going to win at War Games. But like I said, as of right now, this is the team. It's going to change between now and the end of the night, so I'll tell you more about that later. Outside Full Sail, yet again, we see Jessamine Duke, Marina Shafir, and Candice LeRae all beat down the outside, once again by a mystery assailant. Who could be responsible for all this? Up next, Isaiah Swerve Scott taking on the big boy, Bronson Reed. It's another big versus little match here, similar to Keith Lee versus Roderick Strong. Reed with a very devastating looking Omori driver, which for some reason is not a finish. I don't know how that's possible. Scott wins with the house call, though. They have a handshake after the match. Yay, sportsmanship. Another really strong win for Swerve. Up in the crow's nest, Kathy Kelly announces that Matt Riddle and Finn Balor will be in a singles match at TakeOver in a couple of weeks, meaning that Riddle's spot in the War Games match on Ciampa's team is vacant. So Dominic Dijakovic joins, Matt Riddle leaves, still one vacant spot on the babyface team. So who's going to fill that 4th spot? My prediction's either Johnny Gargano or Velveteen Dream. I'm going to lean more toward Dream, though. I think he has a stronger case against the Undisputed Era, because he was the one who was beaten down off camera, backstage, and so he has more of a legitimate gripe with the Undisputed Era, as opposed to Gargano, who was more recently beaten up by Finn Balor, so I think his grudge is with Balor at this point. We get a hype package for the Forgotten Sons, and look, they can push those guys as much as they want until their face turns blue. I still think they're bland as hell. I'm not really interested in them, and really, right now, they don't have a prayer of getting over in NXT because there's not enough room on that show, even though it's expanded to 2 hours, not enough room in that show for 2 major heel stables. And as long as the Undisputed Era is still doing their thing on NXT, there's no room for the Forgotten Sons to really get any kind of foothold in even like the mid-tier echelon of heel stables right now on that show. The match with Pete Dunne and Killian Dain never gets started because as Dain makes his entrance, Damian Priest shows up and beats him and Dunne up. Security gets involved and they're all casualties in the brawl as well. So even more so than last week, a triple threat between these guys seems imminent. Not much else to say about this. We'll see where it goes. Backstage, Mia Yim is being asked about all these random attacks on the other War Games ladies throughout the night. And then Dakota Kai comes in and says, if something goes down out there in that ladder match, I've got your back. We then get an announcement that next week on NXT, Adam Cole and Dominic Dijakovic will face off in a ladder match to determine who gets the advantage in the War Games match. So they really want to blow their wad with this, huh? Like 2 ladder matches in 2 weeks for the exact same stipulation and same conditions. Seems very excessive to me. Seems like you're just kind of like giving all this action away. It wouldn't have killed them to try and think about a different stipulation match, some kind of different gimmick match to have the War Games advantage. 2 ladder matches back to back seems excessive. It seems very craven and desperate. Like, we got to try and beat AEW in the ratings war. So let's do these things 2 in a row and just kill the magic of the ladder match. That's just my take on it. I think it's way too much to ask. I think for them to have all these ladder matches and then do a War Games match right after that, it's just like piling it on. Let's do something else. So we go to that first ladder match next in the main event as Mia Yim takes on Io Shirai for the War Games advantage in that symbolic briefcase. Io's the first one to take a lot of the ladder bumps early on, but then Mia gets way more than her fair share. At one point, she's carrying the ladder horizontally like this. We had a springboard drop kick into the ladder, into Mia's face, and boom, instant blood. She is a gusher, and it's so scary. Like, they do their damnedest to like cut away and just not show you the gore as the medical staff is like taking care of her. I thought it was gonna be the finish. I thought that it was just gonna climb up and going to take the briefcase down, but no, somehow Mia is able to carry on and continue the match. Dakota Kai then shows up to get involved, seems to hand the match to Mia after beating down Io. Then all of a sudden, Kaylee Ray, the NXT UK Women's Champion, shows up, beats up Dakota, and then shoves Mia off the ladder through another ladder on the outside. Io climbs up, grabs the briefcase of symbolism to win for her War Games team. We get Shayna Baszler showing up on the ramp to celebrate and congratulate the squad and everything. Kaylee Ray's there with Bianca Belair and Io. Then all of a sudden, out comes Bayley, the SmackDown Women's Champion. She whomps Baszler in the back with a chair, then runs off. So it's kind of implied that Bayley was the one who was beating up the ladies all night, because that was the whole narrative. Like, is it somebody from Raw or somebody from SmackDown? They never seem to open the possibility that it was somebody from NXT, but I'm still kind of thinking, like, I think Bayley was a red herring, and I think it still might be a vengeful Dakota Kai. I think they kind of left it open-ended enough that it could be either one of them. AEW begins with Kenny Omega getting checked out by the team doctor there, and he says he's not clear to compete, but meanwhile Moxley is. We then see Moxley make his way out to the ring for a match with Michael Nakazawa. Nakazawa eschews the baby oil and goes full force on Moxley, but it is all for naught. In less than a minute, Moxley defeats Nakazawa with the paradigm shift. Then John grabs a microphone and says that match counted, right? And then he says basically, after what happened with him and Kenny Omega at Full Gear, no one's going to have the balls to step up to him ever again, basically, in AEW. He does issue an open challenge to anyone who can step up. So who will answer the John Moxley Big Balls challenge? We'll find out later. Dark Order taking on the Jurassic Express up next. It's Jungle Boy and Marco Stunt, who's kind of a babysaurus on this night. He's got his own Luchasaurus mask when he makes his way to the ring. It's a fun enough match. I really enjoyed Jungle Boy's hot tag near the end. Ultimately, the Dark Order win with the fatality on Marco. After the match, Evil Uno has a microphone and he offers Marco a chance to join the Dark Order as one of the Creepers. Jungle Boy intervenes and says no way, and so then the Creepers start beating up the Jurassic Express. Then a wild Luchasaurus appears, back from injury way earlier than everyone thought. He cleans house and takes out the Creepers and Stu Grayson in one fell swoop. The Jurassic Express back at full strength, which was a real feel-good moment. Triple threat match as Shawn Spears takes on Peter Avalon and Darby Allin. Kind of an awkward moment in the intros here because Avalon's in the middle of cutting a promo on Nashville when I think he's told to be just shut up for a minute because Darby Allin's coming out now. It's time for his entrance. So we never got to hear what Peter's final thoughts were on the city of Nashville. There was a thought that I had in my Full Gear review that I had to cut because I didn't have footage to cover what I was saying. But in the buy-in during the B. Priestley Britt Baker match, we actually saw a shot of Darby Allin sitting in the front row watching, and that really bummed me out because I thought of all the people who should have been on that show, Darby Allin definitely belonged on that pay-per-view because after the showing he had in October, I thought it was kind of crazy he wasn't even involved in this month's pay-per-view. But we see him here in this matchup. As it goes on a few minutes in, Joey Janela runs in and chases Shawn Spears through the crowd, so he's no longer a factor. And in the end, Darby wins the coffin drop on Avalon. Then afterwards, he also grabs the mic. 3 matches in a row with 3 post-match promos. Man, a few words as Darby Allin. He simply says, John Moxley, I accept, and he leaves. So I'm really excited for that one next week. Darby Allin, John Moxley should be, it has a lot of potential to be insane. Nyla Rose back in action on Dynamite, taking on Candy Jordan. It's a squiggity squash match. Nyla wins in a couple of minutes with the Beast Bomb. We then get a medical update on Dustin Rhodes and his condition after Jake Hager slammed the limo door into his arm. And then we get a ringside interview with Tony Schiavone interviewing Alie. We don't get very far in that interview though before all the lights cut out. They come back up and it's Awesome Kong and Brandy Rhodes on the stage. Alie tries to get the first couple shots in on Kong, but they're not effective. Alie gets beat down for her efforts, and then much like what they did to B. Priestley last week at Full Gear, they cut a lock of Allie's hair and Kong gives it a big sniff, and you can see she's got little tokens, little other locks of hair around her waistband, like they're trophies for her. So what does this all mean? Where is this Brandy Rhodes Awesome Kong thing going? And can Tony Schiavone get through one interview on this show without getting cut off? The world may never know. Chris Jericho makes his way to the ring for an interview. He demands yet another thank you from AEW. He talks trash about Cody, and then we hear Cody's music, but instead of Cody coming out from the hydraulic lift on the stage, it's MJF who gets a massive boovation for his mere existence. We had a great speech from MJF here in the ring, talking about how Cody is, he's not the cool guy everyone thinks he is. He's a liar, he's manipulative, he holds people down. He was trying to hold MJF under his thumb, but his thumb's not big enough for MJF, who declares himself the new face of AEW. We then get, and that whole part, that monologue from MJF alone was money. But then, oh my God, the piece de resistance is this back and forth between MJF and Chris Jericho, and they're kind of like dancing around like, do you want to be part of the inner circle? Do you want me to be part of the inner circle? And it's like back and forth, like MJF calls Chris Christopher, Jericho calls him Maxwell, and then Maxwell sells seashells by the seashore. It's just like, it's so damn funny this stuff is. And then the real kicker is how Jericho points out how similar they kind of are. They both love scarves. They're both very handsome. It seems that 25 years ago your parents got horny watching me beat up Juventud Guerrera, and that's how you were born. And then MJF goes, "Who the hell is Juventud?" They're teasing a fight, but then all of a sudden they're like, "Well, who's the biggest jackass in AEW?" I'll tell you who the biggest jackass in AEW is, and they both go, "Cody Rhodes." And they have a big old laugh and a hug. I swear Jericho did something very, very similar in WWE at least once. I can't remember like the context, but that whole setup and the punchline, very reminiscent of something I've seen before. Anyway, Cody does make his appearance. He makes his presence known. He starts getting into a fight with MJF and Jericho. Before he can do much though, Wardlow finally appears. He appears to be the muscle for MJF now. So he beats up Cody, and then they do the hangman spot with Wardlow's tie over the top rope, and that's how that pretty much ends. I mean, just an awesome segment from beginning to end. MJF's promo, the banter with him and Jericho was awesome. Cody and MJF and Jericho are just magic on the mic together. Cody coming in to try and get his revenge, but he gets cut off by the debuting Wardlow after we saw a couple of vignettes for him in the last couple of months. So yeah, this segment was, for me, the highlight of both shows on Wednesday night. Up next, Hangman Page taking on Pac, and what they're saying that this is the rubber match now, which I thought Full Gear was the rubber match, so that kind of threw me for a loop. Be that as it may, still a hell of a matchup, very similar in physicality and pacing to the match we saw at the pay-per-view. We also had some callbacks to that pay-per-view match as well, where we saw kind of like the mule kick by Pac was blocked, the brainbuster attempt in the corner on the outside was reversed by Hangman Page. In the end though, Hangman's kicked in the head one time too many. He is down and out and unresponsive, but Pac keeps laying on the hurt, hits him with the black arrow and puts him in the brutalizer. He's not responsive. The referee has no choice but to call for the bell, and Pac wins here. That part was, I think this twist was interesting. I didn't think another match was necessary. I didn't hate it, but I thought, okay, that's very interesting that we ended that way. Like Page gets his big win at pay-per-view, but then he's kind of protected because he gets knocked out in the rematch. So why do they have to have it other than give him save face a little bit? That I thought was a little interesting. This match was fun, fun, but I question why they had it. Then we cut backstage to see the Young Bucks and Proud and Powerful having a big old brawl. They haven't settled their issues from what happened at Full Gear on Saturday. At one point, I think Santana's tossing, I believe, Nick into a bathroom door, and it opens up, and there's just Orange Cassidy standing there by himself, hanging out in this bathroom for no reason, and it gets one of the biggest pops of the night. And so Santana's like, what the hell? And he like slowly closes the door, and the fight resumes, which I thought was an amazing moment. They fight into the arena and the stage area. The Bucks are getting beat up with a loaded sock full of baseballs. Double powerbomb to Matt through the top of the stage, similar to what they did with Ricky Morton a few weeks ago. And then Brandon Cutler finally intervenes, tells him to stop beating up Nick. They're going to walk away, but then Ortiz is like, hey, Brandon Cutler, we lied! And they start beating him up, which is hilarious. Private Party finally comes in to break things up, and that's where the segment ends. We go to a match graphic for next week where we see Private Party and Proud and Powerful are going to wrestle next week, which I'm looking forward to for a couple of reasons. One, on paper, it's going to be a great match. And also, two, this is basically being billed as a tribute match for their fallen colleague, Matt Travis, who sadly passed away this past weekend. And he was a House of Glory regular with Private Party and Santana and Ortiz. So should be a very good match. Should be a very emotional match. The tribute to the late Matt Travis. I'm really looking forward to that one next week. Main event time for the AEW tag titles as SCU defend against Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara. Le Champion looks to become a double Le Champion, a double champion, as it were. It's a solid main event. We do get some involvement throughout between Jake Hager and then Christopher Daniels. The real story of this matchup here is at the end when Scorpio Sky pins Jericho clean as a whistle in the ring. So he's the first person to actually beat Jericho in AEW. Jericho's no longer undefeated. I don't know if they were strapped for time or what, because I felt that moment should have gotten a little more gravitas to it. It was just not really dwelled upon at all because they had to go fade to black almost right away. I was hoping it would be a bigger deal. It wasn't really, but that might be out of their hands. I look forward to seeing where they go with this. Is Scorpio going to be all of a sudden the next contender for the championship? That'd be kind of out of left field, kind of cool. I mean, Scorpio has been doing great things for AEW in the last several weeks as part of the tag team tournament and his performance overall. So I definitely see them giving him an opportunity at Jericho in the weeks to come, because I don't really see anyone else right now. We'll see where it goes. I hope they build off of this, because they'd be foolish not to. Hey everyone, so it's Thursday morning. I'm actually reshooting the end of this review because as I was getting ready to upload Wednesday Warfare and get it ready for public consumption late last night, I suddenly realized that I wanted to change my mind over who won, because originally I picked NXT to win, but then I decided, you know what, I think upon further examination, I think AEW actually wins this week for a couple of reasons, and I'll explain. Yes, NXT did have the superior wrestling product, the actual in-ring action, I think, was stronger on the whole in NXT than it was on AEW. I think AEW's first hour was a little bit rocky at times, in fact. But I think really two big things sold me on AEW this week. One, well, two and a half, I guess you'd say. One thing that really sold me was obviously the big interaction with MJF and Chris Jericho. I loved every moment of that. I was going to bottle that up. That was an amazing moment to witness. And then also the joy I felt watching the brawl between the Young Bucks and Proud and Powerful. There was the action of the brawl, then there was the comedy sprinkled in with the Orange Cassidy, and then Santana and Ortiz being their crazy selves as they're administering the beatdown. It was just really enjoyable stuff. Also, I think the biggest thing for me with AEW was I'm far more excited to see what next week's AEW has to watch as opposed to NXT's. I think NXT didn't do as good a job of building my excitement for next week, because I'd rather watch Darby Allin and Jon Moxley and see Private Party and Proud and Powerful and also whatever follow-up they got going on with Cody and MJF and Chris Jericho, far more than, another ladder match next week. And even though the ladder match is going to be great, I'm sure it's going to be fine, high-quality stuff, but I just don't want to see them kill that gimmick. I don't want to see them doing 2 ladder matches in a row. It seems too much to me. And not only that, at this point, I'm not really, there's a lot of feuds on NXT. I'm not really kind of waiting to see what's going on. I don't really care about the Killian Dain and Pete Dunne and Damian Priest triple threat. Why exactly are they fighting other than they've beat each other up a couple times, extracurricular activity style? There's not a lot there that's hooking me in to a lot of NXT right now. I think they're trying to tell 2 different stories, because they've got TakeOver and they've also got Survivor Series, And that, I think, confuses things and makes things a little trickier to tell stories, whereas AEW is a bit more singular focused now. But again, looking at those shows back to back and trying to figure out, well, which show left more of an impact on me? What am I going to take away from on this show? And will it get me more excited for the next episode to come? Honestly, I think AEW was the answer to all those questions. The more and more I thought about it, NXT, again, solid, great wrestling across the board, but they didn't really, I don't think they did a very good job promoting next week, except for maybe one match, and it's a match I don't really want to see. So yeah, I mean, the more I thought about it, the more I think AEW really needs to win. Sorry. But let me know what you thought about the shows this week in the comments section below, and be sure to vote which show you thought was better by going to the iCard in the corner of your screen. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.